Hey folks, Steve at Gigasheet here, talking to you today about the data delivery use case. And basically, I'm here to beg you to stop sending giant CSV files via email. Because of a number of new features rolled out by Gigasheet, we feel like this email links to download or attach giant 80,000 row CSVs to emails is a practice that can die a quick death. Instead, you should be sending sheets that are immediately available for analysis. Don't put this chore on your customers. Specifically, let me show you exactly what I'm talking about here. I am starting with this outreach anonymized.json, a 7.2 million row file. If I open it up here in Gigasheet, you'll see that it looks a lot like LinkedIn data. First name, last name, city, state, year born, projected salary, some previous titles, and even some self-reported interests. This clearly was a combination of a couple different data sets. I should also say that this data set is anonymized. It's been mocked up from a couple other different data sets, but these are not real names or email addresses. Don't try to email them. Now, this is a good representation of the kind of data in Gigasheet, and in this case what we have are 3 separate client requests requesting outreach lists from that one data set. We've got a roofing company in Tampa, a tennis resort in Seattle, Washington, and we've got solar panel installers in Arizona. All of them want discrete customer lists that they can start targeting their outreach to, so they'd like us to take our giant data set and provide them with a product that is essentially a filter down list. So starting with the roofers in Tampa, the first thing we're going to do is filter down. And these roofers want a pretty broad range, so we're just going to do a filter for where city equals Tampa and the surrounding cities. So let's choose Tampa, let's choose St. Petersburg, let's choose Clearwater, Florida is near there, and then there's also Lakeland, Florida is near there. When we do that, when we search for those 4 cities, we have filtered down our 7 million row data set to about 83,000 rows. Because these roofers want a pretty broad data set, we're going to give them all 83,000 rows. We're not going to give them all the columns. They certainly don't need previous titles held and self-reported interests, so it's easy enough to just hide those with this panel here on the right. Just click off the ones you don't want to see. And then using one of the new features here at Gigasheet, it's this ability to save as. So being able to save as is going to make a copy of this current result set. So if I choose File, Save As, and give it a name, I'll just call it Tampa Roofer. So this is the data set specific to the Tampa Roofer customer. When I press save, it's going to create a new file of those 83,000 rows and only the columns that I care about. And I can find that in my library. Jumping back to my customer requirements, we'll do the tennis resort in Seattle, Washington now. These people want to focus on slightly wealthier, more disposable income contacts. So we'll do the city equals Seattle, and we'll also include that implied salary that we got from this data set. So here we'll do implied salary is greater than 100,000. We need people who have more discretionary income, and we see a result set now of about 6,000. And you see that they're all from Seattle and that their implied salary is over 100,000. We're going to make this a little bigger. We'll also include the Tacoma region. So let's add that to the filter, and now we're down to 12,051. And again, we see contacts from the Seattle and Tacoma region, and we'll use that Save As feature, and we'll name it Seattle Tennis. So this is the data set that we'll deliver to our Seattle Tennis clients of 12,000 or so rows there. Our third customer request comes from solar panel installers in Phoenix, Arizona, and for this we're going to turn back on all of those columns that we had previously hidden, because we're going to be using that self-reported interest column We don't actually need to visualize these, but it's a good sanity check as we do some filters here, because we are going to use those as we build our filter for our potential solar panel customers. Again, we're going to start with a location-based search. These people are in Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to include all of Arizona in this search, so we'll do state equals AZ. And then instead of implied salary, what we're going to do is we're going to use that self-reported column as I scroll down. That self-reported interest column, I should say, equals, and then I'm just going to start typing in a bunch of potential interests. So green technology, green economy, never the Green Bay Packers, green energy, green roof, and so on. And I'm just going to choose a bunch of these here. I can also type in environment, and I can have environment, the environment, and so on. I can type in, let's see, how about solar? Type in solar, and I get solar photovoltaic, solar cells, and so on. And I can just choose a bunch of these. You get the idea. Solar energy, just trying to get a good data set. I'm going to do this on two of the columns. There are a couple self-reported interest columns here. Let me get my and or logic correct. So I want that one is and that one is or. So where the state equals Arizona and self-reported interests equal green technologies, or self-reported interest column 2 equals, again, another number of these green energy technologies. So green energy tech. Just fly through here and put in some of those same ones: environment, environmental health, environmental advocacy. Basically anyone who we think would be a good target for wanting to put solar panels on their house. Let's do solar one more time. Solar energy, solar power, and so on. I think that's a pretty good data set right there. We'll press apply. And where you've got 18,247 rows from our 7 million row data set. Again, all in Arizona, and just do a quick sanity check through the self-reported interests, and I see lots of stuff on the environment and so on. So with this data set now targeted for people installing solar panels in Arizona, again, I'm going to do a save as. I'm going to name it my Phoenix Solar dataset and press save. And now all of these sheets are in my library. If I click over to my library, I'll see them. So there's my initial 7.2 million. My Tampa dataset has 83.5 thousand rows. My Seattle Tennis dataset has 12.1 thousand rows. My Phoenix Solar Company dataset has 18,000 rows. You'll remember it was 18,247 rows. Now my entire sheet is 18,247 rows, plus all the columns that I initially cared about. Same with the Seattle Tennis. You'll remember that is 12,051 rows. This entire sheet now is just those 12,051 rows. So this becomes the deliverable. Instead of a CSV file, we will use this. Jumping back over to my library, I'll open my Tampa dataset and I'll show how we will use this. This 83,464 row file we're going to deliver via the sharing. Now we can share either directly to an email address if that person has a Gigasheet account. So in this case, I'll use tampa_recipient@gigasheet.com and say, here is the dataset you asked for, dataset you requested. Press invite, and they will get that in email. But let's say that our recipient doesn't have a Gigasheet account. Crazier things have happened. In that case, we can change the access to just public and take the link and just send the link to a public dataset that anyone will be able to access. Here I'll open up an incognito window and go to it, and you'll see exactly what that person will see. Specifically, they'll see this. You'll see that I'm not signed in. I'm getting requested to sign up for free, which you can do, of course. But they do have full access to those 83,464 rows. Without any sort of authentication, they can immediately take advantage and look through this data set. They can filter, they can group, they can sort, they can simply paginate through and understand who's in these 83,000 rows. You can show 1,000 at a time and build a filter and say, you know what, I don't want everyone in those 4 cities. I only want the people in, let's choose Tampa. I only want Tampa. I don't care about those other cities. I'm down to 20,937 rows. Now, of course, I can sign up from there and save it into my own library, or I could just continue to analyze the data anonymously. Now I can also sign into that Tampa recipient at Gigasheet email address to show you what that looks like. And here you'll see that the Tampa Roofer dataset shows up in my library. And when I open it, I'm able to have full Gigasheet functionality. So for example, I can open a filter and I can do a filter for city. City here equals, let's choose, in this case, St. Petersburg. And when I do an apply here, I'll see I've got 20,853 rows. So my data set has been filtered down. Here I can now export, and exports are now free. So anyone can now sign up and have full export capabilities. So in this case, I'm going to call this St. Pete dataset. And what happens is when I do an export is it creates a CSV file for download into my library. I'm in that Tampa recipient and I've got this St. Pete dataset exported.zip. This is a free user. I'm just opening it up and I see now my dataset is here. So all of the columns that I wanted, all of the rows that I wanted from that export, you'll remember that this sheet was 20,853 rows, and including the header row, that's how many I have in this. So because of this combination of save as, share, and export now available in Gigasheet, you can start with a really massive data set, cull it down to exactly what you need, both in terms of rows and columns, share out the data set with the client targeted specifically to their needs. Those folks then can export the data specifically as they need it, not just some giant CSV that is otherwise unnecessary to them. We hope that this workflow helps you out. Try it for free at gigasheet.com.